Thank you for finding time and visiting today's webinar. My name is Anastasia Fabiola, and I am a research analyst at Smart Sentinel Indonesia. I will be serving as one of your moderators today, together with my colleague Fauzan, who will lead the Q&A session later. Today, we have a fantastic panel who will share their ideas and insights on the potentials of CTLCO programs in Indonesia's post-minimum essential forces. We have Mbak Kuri Maharani Savitri, Kolonel Dedi Laksmono, Pak Alman Helvas, and Pak Novan Iman Santosa. This webinar will be broadcasted on our YouTube channel and conducted fully in English, and each speaker will share his or her perspective for 20 minutes. So thank you to all of our speakers for joining us today. It is a great pleasure for us and hopefully for everyone as well. As a quick note, what differentiates this webinar with the previous one, which also discussed about offset, is that this one is focusing on the post-EMF program, while the previous one was more into the ongoing modernization plan. Okay, before we enter our main session, I would like to invite Mr. Alban Sesia, Director of Smart Sentinel Indonesia, to give his opening remarks. Please, Mr. Sesia.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. So first of all, I would like to thank our distinguished panelists who will, I am convinced, provide essential insights on the topic that we discussed today. This webinar is the second of our English webinar series, and we will in the near future focus on specific aspects of defense doctrine and defense industry strategy. Today's topic is very actual. For several months, discussion has been ongoing on the post-MEF plan strategy. There has been a lot of debates, including on the budget allocation needed to push forward the modernization of the Indonesian National Armed Forces. It is always complicated to match the expectations of all the parties engaged when we discuss about procurement and CTLCO strategy. OEMs, local industry stakeholders, end users, and decision makers might have different expectations on what they should transfer or receive. In any case, there is an urgent need to make sure that the upcoming modernization will benefit to Indonesia's defense technological industrial base and by extension to Indonesia. This kind of benefit cannot only be expressed by the technology gathered through offset and TOT, but also on how the received TOT and offset could create a sustainable industrial environment. In these troubled times, it is also important to assess how could TOT and offset would help Indonesia to support its economic recovery strategy. In this perspective, the modernization strategy should be something else than a shopping list. As mentioned in our previous webinar, it should follow a long-term strategy planning and rely on strategic theory and scenario-based planning. It should also encompass relevant and essential TOT and offset that would truly benefit to Indonesian DTIB and that will provide incentives and gains for Indonesia's economic development. Seeing the questions that have been submitted by our audience, and thanks to our valued speakers, Colonel Dedi Laksmono, Bu Kuri Maharani, Pak Novan Iman Santosa, Pak Alman Helvas, today, I am sure that we will be able to highlight the upcoming challenges and, of course, to receive some important insights on how to make sure that the next step is the good one for Indonesian defense industry. Thanks a lot, and let's have a great webinar together.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pak Alban. Now, without further ado, please welcome our first speaker, Mrs. Kuri Maharani Savitri. Mbak Kuri is a faculty member of International Relations Department, Binus University, and her presentation today entitled In Search for Indonesia Offset Strategy in Post-MEF Era. Mbak Kuri, we welcome you to begin the session.
Thank you, Pak Alban and Anastasia. Thank you, Smart Sentinel, for giving me the first opportunity to talk in this forum. Although there are representatives from Ministry of Defense, Pak Dedi, my colleagues, and also my other that I regard highly, Mas Alman and also Mas Novan. Well, I can't deny my connection with the insider VIP in Smart. With Pak Alban, we kind of grew close because we share the same suffering. Pak Alban and I both have French name that often people mispronounce, and we just suffer in silence for that. To open our discussion today, I will only I will only touch upon general issues um, about three things. Next. So basically, I will speak about where are we now in terms of weapon systems, industrial base, dependence index, the problems that shape to what extent we can use offset as our strategy to pursue self-reliance in defense. And then second, I'm going to talk about where are we headed in terms of the kind of concept that the Minister of Defense has offered and the kind of modernization that we probably have to imagine since the concept from Minister has not been issued in form of formal document for us to see. And then finally, I will talk about how to get to what is our objective. How can we use offset? What sort of offset strategic objectives that we need to agree upon first before we get to formulate the most appropriate offset strategy? How is the omnibus law affect the use of offset for the next term? And then the kind of offset objectives must relate to how we imagine our defense industry will be, whether it's going to be part of the global supply chain if we give up the ambitious ambition to become self-reliant wholly, meaning autarky, and we agree to tone down our ambition to be more realistic. For example, whether we aim to be part of global supply chain, or are we going to focus on achieving sustainment in maintenance, repair, and overhaul of our defense system? Next. Thank you. Talking about the current state of defense, cannot separate them from our basic problems. There are three problems. The first, Indonesian weapons are plentiful, but they are old. Defense industry has not been able to meet all defense needs, and our dependence index, instead of getting better, it's getting worse actually. So the revised version of the long-term development plan issued by Bappenas for this term states that the average age of Indonesian weapon systems is 18 years for the land system, and then 22 years for the Marine and the Navy, and then for Air Force it's around 15 years old. And in Venus, we try to calculate it differently using open source data, and we found that the average age of 8 Indonesian non-conventional major weapon system is actually 29 years old, which is older, much older than the calculation by Bappenas. These weapons that we calculate are tanks, guns, armored vehicles, artillery systems, and then assault attack helicopter, warships, submarines, as well as missile and launchers. And we found that the oldest weapons equipment are battle tanks, and then also the armored vehicles. Battle tanks has average age of 52 years, which is, I'm sure, is older than almost all of us here. And then the youngest weapon system we have is the submarine, which average 19 years with the new addition of the latest one produced by TPPAL. And 33% of our all defense equipment is actually used or second hand. This means the modernization through MEF has only touched upon armored vehicle, artillery systems, guns, helicopters, warships, and submarines. Only small part of them. And this is the data from 2018, and we are currently updating this data, so the age calculation could shift again. But judging from the lack of delivery that we receive from foreign suppliers, I don't think that this calculation will change much. Next. How about the industrial base? Based on the data from the defense the Director General of Defense Potential, there are 131 companies that spread evenly throughout the Indonesian archipelago, mainly concentrated on the island of Java. There are 9 state-owned enterprises and 122 private companies engaged in arms production. And most of them, interestingly, are dual use, meaning that they have both defense and commercial business divisions. There are 41, less than 50% of the whole defense industry focused on defense. And the remaining 32 are purely commercial, which trying to enter the defense market. And the majority of these industries engage in the production and service of land-based technology, which is actually relatively low in terms of technological content. There are some industry professionals who are engaged in high industry, high technology, such as aerospace and cyber, but the number aren't that much. So in terms of number, there are increase in the number of defense industry, but that doesn't mean that there's no obstacle. And I think I've talked about this before, that there are structural problems with our industry coming from limited budget, coming from the low R&D allocation, which is only 1 to 2% from our defense budget. And we have elderly, aging workers, and only 0.1% of them have higher education degree. And then the structure of our supply chain is also incomplete, as evidenced with the transaction value between peers is only around 9%. In other words, actually the characters of our defense industry is more or less the same with other industries in small and medium economy around the world. We are not that bad, but we are also not that good. Next, the third problem that we are facing at the moment is the diversification of our weapon systems. The diversification is part of the policy, a long-time policy of our acquisition, because we have experienced being embargoed by at least 4 times by the Dutch, Soviet, Americans, and we are now affected by CATSA indirectly, an embargo by the United States to Russia, and also other countries. Our calculation shows that as of 2020, we have the highest number of variations in weapon systems. We have 211 types of weapons according to the data from military balance. And we are trying to use another data as well, which shows that more or less the same. And the movement of diversification, the increase in diversification in the last 10 years has recorded an alarming development. In particular, for the land-based defense equipment. For example, for the armored vehicles, the types of defense equipment increased from 10 in 1998 to 18 in 2014 and 21 in 2018, which is the most diverse in the region. Actually, we have some weapon systems that are more diverse in this region. This affects, of course, the low degree of interoperability between different services in the armed forces and the capability to conduct joint operations. And the more types and sources of weapon systems also means that our dependency index can be removed. And our study in Venus shows that dependence on 2 major countries that once embargoed us, the US and Russia, is actually growing. Probably because of CATSA, our dependence to Russia will be halted. But then there's the dependence on the US might be growing. Next. So with this problem, what kind of post-MEF modernization that we are looking for? The Minister of Defense has given a subtle hint about the post-MEF modernization concept that deemed as prioritise Nusantara, and departing from his understanding of the conditions of weapons. He understands well that the aging of weapons are troubling us, And then the low readiness, for example, our ammunition reserves are only enough for a day or two, and most of our fighter jets are actually not operational. But there's also a problem with the command control because we are lacking in support ISR, and also because we are having very diversified weapon systems. So when President tasked the minister to conceptualize the post-MEF modernization concept back in 2019, the minister offered his concept, but because of the nature of sensitivity of such documents, we are yet to see the document itself. But some of the characteristics of the future modernization can be imagined, just by looking at some of the hints that the minister conveyed to us in the past several months. For example, so the post-MEF modernization will be characterized by long-term financing, which means that unlike before, future post-MEF modernization, the precise resource center will be guaranteed to run for a long term, for a long period of time. And for this, the minister has proposed what is considered a bombastic figure, around 1.8 quadrillion rupiah. The second characteristic would be the procurement from abroad is mandated to have CTLCO, concentrate local content and offset, as mandated by the law on defense industry. And then there will be utilization of life cycle approach that ensures readiness of the weapon systems that we own. And then the minister promised to raise the bar for transparency and accountability in the contracting of arms import, which will be done by involving supervision from the prosecutor's office, the DBA, BPKP, and BPK before the contract becomes effective. And finally, the minister himself will take the driver's seat, the front seat, not hesitating to join the negotiation, and also engage in checking directly the potential suppliers. Next, we don't know what the modernization risk will look like. I'm sure that Mas Alpha knows much more than me because he has amazing intelligence capability. But you can imagine that with the proposed amount that of budget that the minister spend, there will be no arms build-up. Next, please. Okay. On the left side, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is not the real modernization list that we are going to have. This is just an example of how much we will require, for having another MEF in the future. We calculated the number of postures, the number of each weapon systems required, as stipulated in the Defense Posture 2007 and 2009 MEF, and we multiply it by the current price of the weapon system, and also we add the escalator costs, which range between one system and another, and we conclude that it will take 2 to 3 times as much as budget requested by the minister for us to be able to modernize the entire defense posture that we have now. So after the MEF, it is possible that we will see arms maintenance and partial modernization only. The minister also said that the politics of diversification will continue because of our strategic challenges. This refers to the competition between superpower and also direct conflict between us and one of the superpower in Natuna. And our foreign policy is to become autonomous to become to have a strategic autonomy, yeah, not only for us in Indonesia but also for ASEAN. For the likelibility of us to lean on one superpower against another is very slim. With continuing diversification, the problem of operability and readiness will not be resolved anytime soon. Although we're going to have a scale of nuclear procurement, and I'm talking about the next 5 years, around 20 billion US dollars. It is actually quite large. However, with the diversification policy, which causes us to buy more from many countries in small quantities, this will eliminate the leverage of that negotiation. Next. So how the offset strategy should be formulated depends on the type of national defense industry development strategy. There are 4 options, yeah, autarky or completely independent, niche production, becoming part of the global supply chain, or counter-dependence. While counter-dependence means, well, dependence fully on foreign technology, I think it needs to be emphasized here that the capability to maintain defense equipment is the focus of this strategy. Whereas the autarky is something that almost impossible for us. It can only achieve by 3 superpowers, Russia, US, and China, as evidenced by our calculation of dependence index. The 3 countries achieve less than achieve around 0.1 dependency index, which means almost independence. Yeah. So the option for us is in between being niche production or global supply chain. Unfortunately, to become a niche require the ability to make defense equipment according to the needs of the target market. And this is not something that we are not, this is not our strong point for the moment. Yeah. So the next choice would be global supply chain. I think this is one of the choices that have been mentioned lately. And I've heard about this in some of the KKIP's forums, but yet to see the strategy or whether they have agreed on this global supply chain as the strategic objective of Next. So is it possible to enter, next. I think I've presented this slide before. So basically the, can we move back? Okay, thanks. So basically the Omnibus Law at the moment has changed some articles in law of defense industry which allow the production of weapon systems to be more open for private and for foreign investors. However, there is no rules for which sectors in defense productions that are open to private as with integrator, or which sectors that is open to the investment from abroad. We are still waiting for the Ministry of Defense to issue the supporting regulations for implementation of these changes. Next. So is it possible to enter the global supply chain? If we see the data, the global supply chain, the global defense industry is more or less controlled by United States. It has Tiles Industries in the top 25 largest defense industries and controls 61% of the world's arms market. Its main competitors are China, Western Europe, and Russia, but there are still large gaps to fill by them. And Of course, the arms production supply chains have been internationalized, due to the high cost of producing weapons, which forced even rich countries like the US and Western Europe to cooperate with other countries to collaborate, on cutting-edge technology. And the defense industries also established branches or joint ventures for better access to emerging markets, and of course, cheaper labor and cheaper components. So as a result, as you can see here, big companies like Thales, Airbus, they have subsidiaries in 24 countries, which render them as the most globalized in terms of supply chain in defense production. And then Boeing and Leonardo, they each have subsidiaries in 21 countries, and then followed by Lockheed Martin with subsidiaries in 19 countries. In terms of which countries that are not innovators, but they are part of the global supply chain, we see here Australia taking the top rank with 34 industries, and then Saudi Arabia, which is quite surprising for me. They have 24 foreign industries, subsidiaries, and then followed by India, Singapore, UAE, and Brazil. So this connection to the global supply chain theoretically, enable defense industries of this small and medium defense economy to be to survive, although they have relatively small order from their own government. We have not conducted a further study on which country that should be a model for Indonesia, but we are currently examining the weapons production potential of some countries in the world. We compare several indicators such as their defense budget, the strength of their manufacturing industries that relates to weapon production, and also how much they utilize technology transfer in terms of the number of licenses they get for example, assembly, co-production, and production licenses, to reveal their ability to become global supply chain. And the data is still being collected and not yet being analyzed. We will probably update about this with the progress of our study later on if we have achieved significant milestone on that.
Mbak Kuri, sorry, 2 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. Next. Okay, so what about being independent country in MRO? MRO is very important because a third of a total military assets are usually in maintenance position at all times. And economically, MRO also accounts for more than 10% of the total defense budget. It even accounts for 70% of all aircraft costs. I think this is why Singapore chose to be MRO countries rather than being a part of the production of the whole platform like Indonesia. Unfortunately, again, we have not concluded studies on this. Hopefully, KTIP and the Ministry of Defense will take charge in this kind of study so that we will know the characteristics of countries that can manage to become countries that are capable of MRO, not only for domestic needs, but also for regional hubs as well. Next. Okay, this is actually a last minute addition because I just got this last night unexpectedly, but this is an example of what offset deals that have been signed by the current government. And if we look at it, it seems like the emphasis is on transfer of MRO capabilities, not being part of global supply chain. Because when it comes to global supply chains, usually we see work share more, the local content of the offset, and that I could be wrong, but hopefully the representative of the Minister of Defense, Pak Dedi, could explain whether MRO is indeed the strategic objective of the current offset. And allow me to close this by saying that the potential of offset is actually depending on whether the Ministry of Defense manage to secure public support for the future post-MEF modernization. And I think having clear offset strategy will also help to regain that trust. So thank you so much. I will welcome your question later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Kuri, for giving us a very insightful presentation. So if I may summarize, Mbak Kuri mentioned this interesting term of archipelagic trident shield or perisai Trisula Nusantara in Bahasa Indonesia, where can we say it's a base of Indonesia's Armed Forces Modernization Plan. Definitely, Indonesia's Armed Forces Modernization Plan will be influenced by numerous factors. In addition, Mbak Kuri also predicted that we might witness partial modernization and arms maintenance, but the principle of diversified weapon system is also expected to continue. Okay, just a quick note for the audience. We will open the Q&A session after all of our amazing speakers delivered their presentations. So if you have any questions, you can submit them in the Zoom or YouTube chat box and our team will collect them. Also, don't forget to identify yourself as well as your institution. It is now my pleasure to welcome our second speaker, Colonel Dedi Laksmono, as a representative of the Indonesian Ministry of Defense. Colonel Laksmono is the head of Counter Trade, Local Content, and Offset Subdirectorate of the Directorate General of Defense Potential. Colonel Laksmono will present about the implementation of CTLCO in purchasing defense equipment. Colonel Laksmono, you may start your presentation now.
Okay, thank you, Bu Anastasia, as our moderator. Thank you, Bu Kuri, Mr. Alban, and another speaker, and also the whole audience. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin this seminar, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who have sincerely committed to this event to make it a success. This event would have been impossible without the support of each and everyone present here. I need to take this opportunity to share with audience how to implementation counter trade, local content, and offset in the purchasing defense equipment. Next, please. So we start from our legal basis. So I just complete the information from Bu Kuri. So she already mentioned that after law number 12/2020 regarding the job description implemented, so there are three impact of our previous regulation, law number 16/2012 about the defense industry. So again, in the regulation emphasized that about the counter trade and local content offset more than 85%, and also for the local content at least 45%. And also in our government decree number 76/2014. He said about the mechanism of the counter trade, local content, and offset. And also we have Minister of Defense Decree number 30/2015 talk about the counter trade, local content, and offset as well. And also to achieve our technology, we have a guidance from DTIB. Next, please. So as we know that our president mentioned how every weaponry procure from abroad must be to be investment. If we see in that scale for the purchasing, we spend a lot of money, and we call that is a cost. So for that, procurement must be in three mechanisms. One from G to G, and the second government to B to business, and business to business. And all purchasing must be to be investment, and we call that is a value. How the all value must be implemented? We can enhance our skill, our knowledge, and get more facility. We got a data package, license, production, equipment, and tools from the UOM. Next, please. And then if we see the mechanism of control trade, local content offset through the purchasing the military equipment from overseas, we start to deal with the principal or OEM. And then for the purchase contract must be handled by Baranahan, and the offset agreement handled by Defense Potential, Directorate General of Defense Potential. And for all principal must be deal with the beneficiaries regarding technology needed for the defense industry, research and development agency, and university as well. And how about the local content? Must be deal with the defense industry as a supply chains or joint production and so on. Next, please. So why we need the local content for every procurement? So as we know that we already have a mature technology actually, but again, if we need to comply with their standard, so we have to sitting together and discuss together with them. So as we know that if we see the diagram here, our defense industry, research and development, and university for the technology existing is still low. So we have a gap between our technology and the OEM technology. So we need to enhance our standard. Of course, they have to assess our beneficiaries. They can check their capability and capacity, and for the assessment such as investment of technology and research and development, they take a look our market opportunity and potential economic opportunity and spillover economic as well. Next, please. And again, in our regulation, emphasize that there are three components for the counter trade, local content, and offset. For the local content, we request from OEM such as design, engineering, intellectual property right, raw material, facilities, and infrastructure, education and training, manpower, and after sales. And then for the offset, we request from them for the maintenance, overhaul, refurbishment, and modification. Those activities, they are already emphasized by Bukuri before. And we also request for the retrofit and upgrade for the previous equipment, license production, buyback, co-production, subcontract, development of research and development, joint development, technology transfer, market development, joint venture, investment. And also for the counter trade, we put it the priority is product of Indonesian defense industry. So again, for every 5 years, we have to enhance our local content and offset, increase 10%. Next, please. As a Minister of Defense, we have a lot of program for enhance our defense industry capacity and capability. One is a local content implementation. So we also have an international cooperation and promotion, establishment, research and development, and we still have a 7 national priority program. Next. So this is our achievement for the local content and offset. So we need the independence for the defense equipment. So we already suffer before. We got the embargo from the OEM. So the government, they do not want to get bad experience like last time. So that's why our government push our local industry. They have to make some of equipment to sustain our equipment. So you know that like this situation, like a pandemic, so that is a very difficult to invite the people from abroad to fix our equipment. So that's why we need our that capability to make some equipment to make sure that our equipment still running. And also we need make some equipment locally, and then we also need alteration for those equipment, and also we need as a global supply chains. So this is a very challenging for us to be a part of the global player. And also we need the absorption of manpower and the development of human resource that have a strategic function. Next. So we got information from Bappenas. So that is a very significant getting more loan for the foreign loan. We to 2024 we enhance our budget till around 41.16 trillion rupiah. So this is a good for our local industry and from OEM to take participate on that program. Okay, so we go to slide number 10. Yeah. Next. So for time being, we have around 186 defense industry, consists of the 10 state-owned enterprises and 176 private enterprise. And we also have around 11 mission enterprises. So that those of our local industry is spread, some in Sumatra, Jawa, and Sulawesi as well. Next, please. So this is our priority technology from the local content and industry capability. Last time we have 7 priority program. And now from DTIB, they put it around 9 priority program. One is a fighter aircraft, submarine, medium tank, drone, propellant, rocket, radar, and missile. And those technology we will get from the strategic partnership, ecosystem synergy, policy research, joint production, joint development, and joint venture. Next, please. So, in that term of reference, there is a question how to local content and offset implementation. So we just get information from Baranahan when they will start for the procurement. So in parallel, we build up the offset structure. We discuss with the OEM. So of course we invite the local industry, TTIP and expert team. We are sitting together and we discuss what kind of technology or capability we need from the OEM. And we hope that when the contract between MOD and the OEM are signing, so we also finish for the offset agreement. And we hope also after the contract effective, the OEM already due diligence with our local industry, we can start those activities for the local content and offset. After they finish all activities, so we have to check the goal of those activities if already done and comply with our offset agreement. So we issue the certificate of offset completion. So they can take that document as a part for the final for the pay. Next. This is some of local content and offset activities. They provide us locally and also in abroad. And also we support the OEM for the local content. So also we have some capability, and we got also some equipment from them to make our local industry can run maintenance, repair, and overhaul locally. So that is our activities for the local content and offset every procurement from abroad. So I think that is our all presentation. Thank you very much for all audience. So we send back to Bu Anastasia. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak. Such a great presentation. Colonel Laksmono emphasized that the objective of CTLCO programs is to achieve a self-reliant defense industry that could eventually contribute to Indonesia's economy. Moreover, it is also interesting to note that there are 6 activities conducted by the government in order to enhance national defense industry capabilities. These activities are mainly focused on 8 priority programs, as mentioned by Colonel Laksmono earlier. Now, let's welcome our third speaker, Pak Alman Helvas, former country representative for Jane's Aerospace, Defense and Security, and currently a consultant at Smart Sentinel Indonesia. Alman will give his insights on the opportunity, budget, and challenges of Indonesia's post-MEF CTLCO programs. Alman, you may start your presentation now.
Thank you, Anastasia.
Yes, Pak.
Ladies and gentlemen, today my presentation will cover on opportunity, budget, and challenges for the Post-MEF counter trade, local content, and offset. Next, please. The first one is about opportunity. 2 months ago, I think, next. I think some of you has been aware about this. My friends, John Grefat has been issued a great story about offset opportunity in the Asia Pacific until 2030, which there will be $140 billion opportunity here in this region, and in Indonesia itself it will be around $18.1 billion, which most of the opportunity expect will come from the military aircraft. So this is a big huge opportunity for Indonesia for offsets. But again, this is opportunity. Opportunity doesn't automatically means you can win it everything. You can win it all. This is just opportunity until 2030. Next, please. So for the procurement list for the post-MEF, the post 2024, I think it will be similar with today, because our homework is not on defense modernization is not finished yet, and it will continue on every decade. So these are likely the equipment we will buy in post 2024. Next, please. Let's talk about budget. Some people out there love to talk about defense procurement, but they don't like to talk about budget, because budget is reality. So the budget for MEF, the rest of MEF, and the post-MEF, it will depend on our government fiscal capacity to finance defense sector. And then there is until a few next years, our budget will be declined according to Jen's defense budget forecast. This is due to the COVID-19. So we cannot separate it between talking about offset, counter trade, and everything without talking about budget, because the budget is the upstream of everything. Fiscal capacity, government fiscal capacity today is narrow. If you don't believe, just ask those in Ministry of Finance. And what kind of economic policy we have after 2024 will be determined by the new administration on 20th October 2024. But Jens has been forecast that Indonesian economic growth will be around average 4 and 5% annually. 4 and 5% annually is a normal, is a moderate one, and also it's not something big, because if you just push the local consumption in normal situation, you can earn the 5% growth every year. Next, please. How about the defense budget? As I mentioned before, our defense budget forecast will be declined at least until 2025. And on the other hand, our capacity to have a foreign debt is limited today. Also, our government capacity, Ministry of Finance capacity to provide domestic source counterpart budget also limited. As you understand that on April 26 this year, Minister of Finance has issued $5.8 billion foreign loan approval to finance 31 activities regarding defense procurement until early 2022. But on the other hand, there is a reality that government should provide what we call domestic source counterpart budget, or RMP, on every foreign loan. And if we, according to calculation, we next on fiscal year 2022, we need around $870 million, or 12 trillion rupiah for RMP. But Ministry of Finance has already stated that RMP for MOD budget next year is only 3 trillion rupiah, not 12 trillion rupiah. So it's only 1/4. So it's once again so that it's once again demonstrate that government has a narrow fiscal capacity to finance the budget, defense budget, to finance the defense sector today. So we don't expect that all 31 activities with $5.8 billion will be signed contract, or even to enter its effective date, because the RMP, the local source budget, is only 3 trillion rupiah available next year. That's not good, but that's reality. You should cope with it. So on the other hand, compared to the previous minister, the current Minister of Defense projected that he will only expect the defense budget is around 0.8% of GDP. On previous ministers, those gentlemen asked 2% of GDP, which cannot afford by the finance ministry. Next, please. Challenges. This is the story 3 years ago. It's old one, but still applicable today. We still have issue with how to absorb the foreign technologies. We have capability issue to absorb the foreign technologies. It's still the case today. Next, please. So this is our defense industry, defense technology and capability gaps. Yes, we can produce some equipments less with lower technology, but once we proceed to medium and high tech, that's our capabilities. That's where our capability is limited. So we don't have capacity yet, capabilities yet to, let's say, to develop combat system for missiles, radar guidance for missiles, and also like engines for aircraft, radars for aircraft, engine for tanks, and something like that. This is the reality that show that there's a gap between our ambition and our current capability on defense industry. Next. Okay, there are some issues need to be addressed. The first one is planning. regarding the counter trade, local content and offset, we should, I think, MOD should align the planning for those activities with the blue books, because every offset counter trade is, the position is offset counter trade is on the downstream, not on the upstream. The upstream is budget. Budget come from what financing systems. The second one is, what are the order of priority for counter trade, local content, and offset? Are we going to prioritize counter trade first, or local content first, or offset first? It should be clear what are the order, and then what kind of technology we need to be prioritized for offset. Yes, we have 7, 9, or 10 we ambition to master the technology, but we have come to our reality that we cannot master the technology in 10 years. Because we have budget capacity, our budget capacity is limited to finance all this offset program. Once again, offset program related to the government fiscal capacity to defense, to finance defense sector. So what is our priority for offset? Is that aerospace first, and then defense electronic, missile, military ships, ground vehicles, or we always start from the lower one, which much easier than aerospace, the ground vehicles. Then for counter trade, what are the commodity? What is the main commodity? Agriculture or medium or high tech product? Are we going to offer palm oil or shrimp crackers for counter trade, or are we going to offer some, let's say, aerospace product like N219 in the future, or CN235? That's a challenge. That's an issue we should resolve. But on the other hand, if we discuss about, let's say, aircraft product like N219, CN235, for N219 is, if the aircraft wants to enter international market, it should have at least EASA CS23 or FAR Part 23. It's one of the competitiveness in international market. You cannot just, let's say, depend on DGCA CISR Part 23. Not every country recognize that. Better you have either FLR Part 23 or CS Part 23. The similar one with CN235. Some PTDR customer were requested certification from either from EASA or FAA. Yes, we CN235 has a certification from, let's say, EASA, but it's actually belong to the CASA, to the Spain. The airworthiness issue is important in terms of aircraft. If we just offer for some cases, we can offer the, let's say, aircraft for counter trade. Not all cases, but some cases we can offer aircraft. But we should also remember that the customer normally will ask about the airworthiness. Which agency issued the airworthiness? IMAA. Oh, IMAA standard is below the GCA. So that's an issue to penetrate international market with the local certifications, which is not recognized by other countries. And then we are talking. Next one is about human resources. Who will prepare the human resources? and how to prepare it. Who will finance them to attend the higher educations? Let's say for master degree or postmaster degree. Are we going to have a new style and everything? I think those who attend school and universities in 1990s, 1980s know very well about style or OMP and others scholarships facilities provided by the government at the time. But today, we don't know how to strengthen these human resource issues. You cannot depend on LPDP. Next one. Let's talk about financing. Defense industry still need financing in order to enhance their capacity, in order to modernize their production facilities. For defense SOE, the question is who will finance the capital injections. My understanding is there will be no capital injection anymore for state-owned SOE until 2024 from government. Are they eligible to receive, let's say, loan or from commercial bank or finance industry? And then the next one is interesting one is the role of the, let's say, SOE subsidiary and private industry on offset and on defense industry. You can see one example is GMF Asia. This MRO company has established a business division on military, on defense market, and compared to all defense SOE and also private defense industry, this MRO has one advantages. It's already listed on the stock exchange. It means they can earn money easier than other competitors. And with the current situation on aerospace business, where with the low demand on commercial travel, I think this company like GMF Asia will push hard into their defense business. And then another question is about how the private industry can attract finance from the banking or the finance industry to attract the finance industry to provide financial scheme. This is challenges for the private industries. Without loan from finance industry, I don't think they will count. I don't think they have capacity to buy more production facilities to prepare human resources and everything.
Palman, sorry, you have less than 2 minutes left.
Next. So the key takeaway are, the first one is we are going into uncharted waters for our economic development on post-COVID-19, on post-2024. And then CTLCO opportunity will depend on the government fiscal capacity to finance defense sector. And then the capability gap today we have will still prevail in the post-MEF era. Also, planning and financing for the CTLCO are critical issues for today and tomorrow. And don't forget about to prepare the human resources who will in charge on defense industry in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Palman, for the very valuable presentation. It is interesting to note here that it might be difficult to predict what exactly will be the challenges in Indonesia's CTLCO potentials after the MEF program. However, Palman emphasized that whether or not Indonesia can fully absorb these potentials will mostly depend on its fiscal capacity. Another thing to highlight is the current capacity gap of Indonesia's defense technology might prevail in its post-MEF era. In this sense, it is only more important to carefully plan and assess the CTLCO program that might challenge the implementation in the future. Quick reminder for those who have just joined our webinar, welcome. We will have the Q&A session after all speakers have shared their presentation, and we will try to get through as many questions as we can. In the meantime, should you have any questions, you can submit them in the Zoom or YouTube chat box. Okay, please hold on there, everyone. We still have one more excellent speaker, Pak Novan Iman Santosa, a journalist in the Jakarta Post and co-founder of the Jakarta Defense Studies. Pak Novan will discuss about maximizing capacity and capability of local industry to support post-MEF CTLCO. Pak Novan, we welcome you to begin the session.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Anastasia.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. The previous three speakers have talked a lot about the possibilities and the technicalities of the CTLCO, and I would like to focus more a little bit on the industrial capabilities of the lower tiers. Next, Mbak. Okay, according to law number 16 number 2012 on defense industry, the defense industry are divided into four tiers. The first tier is the prime contractor or the lead integrator, which is currently has to be state-owned enterprises. While there are already some calls, especially from the private sectors, to allow private companies also to be regarded as prime contractor or lead integrator in tier 1. Then we have tier 2 or major components maker. Let's say if it's a vehicle, either an airplane or a ship, the major components could be the navigation system or the avionics or the propulsion system. And then we have tier 3, that's parts and components, smaller parts, so parts of the engine, parts of the avionics, parts of the navigation system. And then we have tier 4, which cover raw materials. So it could be chemical industry, it could be metal, steel, aluminum industries to support the tier 3 in making the parts and components. This is how the components, the tiering of the defense industry is being described by the KKIP and also by Defense Ministry. On the other hand, we have another example from NIOC and CEGU 2005. The top is still the same, prime contractor or lead integrator, but it is more specific in this case, an example of an aircraft or aerospace system. The author, they divided the pyramid into 3 large chunks. First is the avionics or electronics, that's on the left side. And then on the center is the propulsion system. And then on the right is the aircraft services. Aircraft services and systems. So as we can see that a vehicle, an aircraft or a ship or a weapon system basically is consisted on 3 major subparts. There is the avionics, the guidance, which guide them to go from point A to point B, and then the propulsion system could be the engine, mostly the engine. Now we have various engines for various purposes. Let's say mostly diesel for trucks and ships, and then we have jet engines and turboprop for aircraft, and also pistons. And then we have the various systems for like the operational of the vehicle. So with this in mind, when we talk about defense industry, usually we only think about the top one, only on the tier one or prime contractor or on the lead integrator. So we are talking about PTDI, we are talking about Boeing, Lockheed, Airbus, and so on. But behind them, there are a lot of other companies which are supporting with their own specialization. For example, Mas Alman already talked about C291 and CN235 and so on. It's a propeller, it's a turboprop aircraft. And for the propeller, there are at least three or five major names, like Hamilton Sandstrand, which are specializing in only making the propellers. So this is a subset of the metal industry. So you can see that they are going to refine their skills in making the most efficient propeller, but they also need capabilities in the metallurgy, the skill and know-how in metal. That's where tier 4 companies come. For steel, for example, we have already Krakatau Steel, but unfortunately, Krakatau Steel is only make steel plates for bigger submarines, for example. Yeah. So with this in mind, that's why I'm focusing on the lower tier companies, because if we do have stronger and more companies in the lower tiers, it means that we can reduce our dependence on imports, increasing our local contents. Next. Okay, you already see this from Mbak Aku's presentation. Yeah, I got it also from Binus University, from Mbak Aku's studies. From 130 companies, the majority are SOEs, state-owned, and about quarter of them are land system, cross-service, and also sea system. Meaning shipyards, ground vehicle, or those which can be used in almost all services. Okay, next. This is also interesting that from the sample, almost half of them are dual use. And only about a little bit more than a quarter or 1/4 is purely defense. I think this shows that there are a lot of potentials in the dual use companies and also the commercial companies, because they can support the defense companies, especially in the lower tiers. For example, when we are making ground vehicles, armored vehicles, for example, the platform might be made by PT Pindad or SSA, but the steering wheel or the tires or the shock breakers are actually mostly made by companies who are commercial in nature. So they just have a small division perhaps, or maybe they can use any tires that are being used for trucks, huge trucks for APC, for example. And then from location, mostly are located in Jakarta and West Java, with some in East Java and several other provinces, such as Banten and also Riau Islands. Mostly in Riau Islands are shipyards or offshore industries making oil rigs. So although they are basically are not specializing in making defense products, but their know-how can be useful in supporting the tier 1 lead integrators or prime contractors. Next. Okay, I believe that most tier 1 or prime contractor in Indonesia already have some capacity and capability to receive transfer of technology, especially if we are talking about the big ones, the SOEs one. They have been receiving TOTs and offsets from the very beginning. But of course, because the majority of the companies are private owned, we must also improve their capabilities and capacity by also including them as the recipient of any offset or transfer of technology programs. Because at the end, it will only be beneficial not for the companies, but also Indonesia as a whole. However, the presence of lower tier industry is still limited, is still patchy. I'm not sure if all the parts and components for CN235, CN235 is already locally made other than the fuselage. Of course, there are some, but not yet that fully integrated, unlike, let's say, in the automotive industry. And there is also a problem because many raw materials and intermediary goods are still imported, as well as production tools. Both the defense and industry ministries have set priorities. This is important because although the defense ministry is having some guidelines or roadmap, but they're mostly for the tier 1 lead integrator or prime contractors. I hope that there are already some program to improve the capacities of the lower tier companies, such as frames or making bolts, cables, wires, piping, seals, which are actually could be used both in defense and in commercial usage. And actually, for coordination between the defense ministry and the industry ministry, there should be no problem because the industry minister is actually also a member of the Defense Industry Policy Committee, the KKIP. So I believe that all the information what are needed by the defense industries could also be transferred to the industry ministry, who will develop further the companies to support the defense industry. Next. Okay, previously Pak Dedi and Mas Alman already talked about the industrial priorities. At first, the defense ministry has 7 back in 2016 or 2017, 7 key products they would want Indonesia to master: jet fighter, submarine. We are still in negotiation with South Korea to continue the KFX, EFX. Submarine, we already have we already got 3 submarines from South Korea, cooperation between PT PAL and DSME, and medium tank in cooperation with Turkey. And then we also have radar, missile, rocket, and propellant. And I've noticed that there are also 3 other capabilities that Indonesia would like to master, which is UAV with the UCAV Elang Hitam, and also cyber and C4ISR capabilities. Cyber and C4ISR capabilities are in what I call in the system area, because they don't really materialize as a product such as tank or aircraft, but more into the software. But of course, they do have a physical presence, but it is more about the electronics, working sensors, and also the internet thing. Yeah. If we look at the industry ministry, they also have 10 industrial priorities divided into 3. First is the champion industry, which are food, pharmacy, cosmetics, medical equipment, textile, leather, footwear, and miscellaneous, transportation, electronics and ICT, power generation, capital goods, components and services, and then that's the supporting, and then the basic industry, which are agro industry, basic metal and non-metal, and also petrochemical. So if we look here, there are at least 5 industrial priorities from the industry ministry, which could support the defense ministry industrial priorities. In transportation, of course, we are working on jet fighter, submarine, and medium tank. Electronics and ICT is needed in every weapon system now, either as guidance, navigation, battle combat systems. They are all in electronics and ICT group. Power generation, Indonesia has yet to have the capabilities to make its own engine in a industrial scale. I've learned that there are 1 or 2 companies that are making mini turbojets, but of course there is not enough to, let's say, power an aircraft. Capital goods is like machining, tool and jigs or CNCs. And of course, I've discussed earlier whether we have the capabilities to make or to produce certain metal alloy to be transformed into, let's say, armored carrier, armored personnel carrier, or an aircraft. Yeah. Okay. Next. Okay, these are the details of the industrial priorities from the industry ministry. In the transportation, we can see that, these industrial priorities are set in 2015 until 2035. And just like MEF, it is divided into 3 stages, 2015 to 2019, then to 2020 to 2024, and from 2024 to 2035. In the land vehicle, we can see that the focus in automotive components, and in the engine, it could be using oil, gas, or electric. But then in the future, as just like what is trending right now, if you may so, we are going to electric and fuel cell. So we are abandoning the fossil-based fuel. And the 3rd stage is also engine, electric and fuel cell.
Novan?
Yes.
Sorry, less than 2 minutes.
Oh, oke. Oke, kalau gitu next aja. Oke, bisa di next, Mbak. Oke, I take the example of 295. Sorry, 219. We already have some local components. On the left, it's the components that already have technical assistance given by the industrial ministry, and on the right is industries which have yet to be provided with technical assistance. For example, safety glass and cabin windows or windshields, perhaps for a commercial application, they do not have to be bulletproof, but for military application, they have to be improved to be bulletproof. Next. I would like to take a lesson, some lessons from the automotive industry. You can see that we have become a huge success with the export of components. It's increasing. However, most of the material is still being imported, just like electronics. So we have become a nation of assemblers instead of a nation of makers, because most of the raw materials are still imported. One example is Thailand. This is the Detroit of the East. With the experiences and their strength in automotive, they want to upgrade their skills and enter the aerospace sector. While this could be a challenge for Indonesia as a competitor, because we are not that good in automotive as compared to Thailand. And in aviation or aerospace, we are still also learning the ropes. Next. The opportunities for Locality industry, they could be included as the recipients of TOT through direct or indirect offset schemes. Once they have that capability, then they can become, they can enter global supply chain. And with more investment in the lower tier, it means that we are boosting our manufacturing contribution to the GDP, which is already now on the decline, as well as provide more employment. Therefore, we can say that we are already achieving the target of making defense acquisition as an investment instead of cost, or guns and butter, and not guns versus butter. Next, last slide. However, there are several challenges. There is government consistency in both policy and acquisition plan. We know the saying that ganti pejabat, ganti kebijakan. When the official is changing, then the policy or decision is also changing. And then, as Mas Alman already said in his presentation, that we need the top tier is actually the financing. We also need financing support, both for domestic needs and also export credit for foreign buyers. Let's say CN235, we already have several buyers, let's say from Senegal and Nepal. And then, however, the economies of scale is too small if we only rely on TNI. We should also bring other institutions such as Polri, Bakamla, BNPB, Basarnas, and others into the CTLCO mechanism in their acquisition plans. And Kapolri is already also, just like industry minister, Kapolri is a member of KKIP. So I think there should be a high-level discussion on their acquisition plan. And it has been also, lastly, it has been also touched how we can strengthen MRO and also CMU. CMU is a conversion, modification, and upgrades capacity and capability. Singapore, they do not make aircraft, they can convert, they can upgrade. And also Mbak Kuri said that Israel is more into global supply chain, but in my opinion, Israel has its own capacity, making both their own weapons and also upgrading. For example, they are making the converting 767 into both AUW and also aerial tanker refueler, which we also needs the capacity. Next. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. I would like to thank you, and I would return the floor to Mbak Anastasia.
Thank you, Pak. What an insightful presentation. Pak Novan stated that there are several opportunities within the CTLCO programs, especially for the domestic lower tier industry. To a greater extent, CTLCO can increase local defense industry's contribution to Indonesia's GDP and eventually provide more job opportunities. Nonetheless, there are challenges that mainly in the strategic level and should be overcome in order to ensure that CTLCO are optimized, such as budget constraints and consistency in acquisition policies. With the last presentation from Panovan earlier, we will now enter the Q&A session, which will be moderated by my colleague Fauzan. Please, Fauzan.
Thank you, Anastasia. The first question will be from Diki from Universitas Terbuka. Some private companies have no prior experience or capabilities in the defense sector. And how does the Ministry of Defense or Ministry of Industry support them? I think I will let Mbak Kuri to answer this question first, because Mbak Kuri previously mentioned that there are some private companies in Indonesia that are trying to enter the defense market.
Okay, thank you, Mas Fauzan, for the question. I'm afraid that this question should be better addressed to the representative of Ministry of Defense, Pak Dedi. But okay, since you already direct the question to me, so I'll try to answer this. Let me just emphasize that today's innovations that affect defense system are actually occurring within the private sectors, and also not at the level of system integrations. You know, as mentioned by Mas Novan, industry at tier 1 and 2 are actually just as important as the lead integrator, and they are mostly the one that drive the innovation into the defense technology. And if we refer to this study by O'Hanlon in 2019-2020, he mentioned about predictions of technological change that could affect the character of future wars in 2040. And he said that revolutionary changes will occur in the fields of computing, communication, cyber, IoT, AI, big data, robotics, autonomous systems. So the majority of which, even though states are responsible for the funding of this innovation, but the innovation itself took place in the private sectors. So what does it mean for Indonesia? It means that the government needs to change its approach in engaging the private sectors in defense production. So the government should no longer waiting for them to come to Kemhan and then register themselves to get the approval for arms production. But the government should be proactively mapping the private sectors that have relevant capabilities for developing the future weapons. And I believe that the Bappenas has already started this by reviewing the RIPIN, the National Industrial Plan. And if you see the RIPIN, it's a roadmap to develop the industries that deem to be important for the competitiveness of the country. And within the RIPIN, you can see which industries will be given priorities and support from the government for the next 5 years and then the next 5 years. And some of them are actually relevant with what we need to develop new weapon systems, such as nanotechnology, cyber, computing. So I think it's important for Kemhan to have this kind of RIPIN, but specifically for the for the arms production. That's all, Mas Fauzan.
Thank you, Mbak Kuri, for the answer. Next, we have question from Primadi Wicaksana from State Secretariat. Defense procurement policy always change when there is a shift in the government administration. In that sense, how to ensure the continuity of defense procurement policy or plan between administration? And the second question is from Febi Tropi Delta from Ditekinhan Ditjen Pothan Kemhan. For Mbak Kuri, how to solve the problem of difference in interest between offset providers, users, and the readiness of Indonesian defense industry to receive offsets? Maybe Mbak Kuri could answer.
Sorry, Mas Fauzan, do I need to address both questions or just the last question?
You can both, Mbak, if you want.
Okay, the first question, thank you, Pak. I really appreciate your participation in this forum. I think I welcome the participation of colleagues from Sector Press. Changes of procurement following changes in leaderships, unfortunately, yes, as mentioned by other speakers, that still happens. I think that's one of the things that prompted the current defense minister to come up with his 1.8 quadrillion modernization plan, and to have it, to have the contract for all the weapon systems ready in during this strategic plan under his period. There is one interesting initiative from him that would definitely solve the problem of the changing plan following the changing leadership. But whether it is technically possible, it remains to be seen. And because these initiatives have been regarded as politically incorrect in the times of pandemic, I'm afraid that there is no follow-up for the technicalities of the technical debate of the initiative. Although I actually encourage that perhaps Sama Sentinel have another seminar on that, and I think we can also see some models in other countries, yeah, where they have a bulk procurement at one times, yeah, like the one that South Africa did, although that was also marked by corruption. But anyway, there's always benefit and disadvantage of an idea, and I think the idea itself is worth to explore, and sadly we don't get to see that because the idea has sort of been shut down in instance. But defense strategy doesn't change that much actually. I mean, like, what hampered the modernization plan in the first two stages of MEF is not just the changes in procurement plan, but also it concerns the financing systems, yeah, the lacking of communication between the three authorities from the Ministry of Defense and the Bappenas and the Ministry of Finance. So I don't have answers to that, but I encourage colleagues in Samar and also Sector Press to give a second chance to the 1.8 quadrillion debates. At least the technicality aspects that not that the amount. Let's just not focus on the amount, but the technicality aspect of how to make sure that we can have a long-term modernization plan that is not vulnerable to changes with the changes of leadership in defense sectors. And the second from my colleague, Pak Febi. Pak Febi is, I think he's a very valuable resource person because he has this
long experience dealing with offsets negotiation in the Ministry of Defense. So, Pak Febi, as this is a very good question. I think this is like a $1 million question. How to solve the problem of differences in interest between the offsets providers, users, and the readiness of local defense industry to receive offset. But I think it is natural that there will be differences of interest between the three. Of course, difference of interest between users and local defense industry shouldn't happen because most of our defense industries that receive offsets are state-owned. However, the fact says that they have different interests, and I believe that we should genuinely acknowledge that there are differences in the interests because there are also different concerns behind that. For example, the providers might be worried about whether there will be additional costs by, offset discharge, as mentioned by Mas Alman. So offset always incur offsets premium costs, either in form of administrative costs or moving the production capacity, the jigs and tools, etc., etc. Providers might be worried about the costs, the readiness of defense industries to receive the offset that they give, and providers have all the rights to be worried because they are the one who will be given penalty if they fail in offsets discharge. If I'm not mistaken, the offsets penalty costs up to 5% of the procurement value, which is the value of the performance bonds that they post in Indonesian local bank. The users have their own worried whether the offsets will be increasing the cost of procurement and reducing the allocations of budget that they receive, and whether the offsets will lengthen the procurement process. And I think Kemhan has done a very good job in eliminating the second concern, which is whether offset will lengthen the procurement process. Clearly, offset doesn't impact the process. It makes the process more complicated, but not necessarily lengthen the process of procurement. But Kemhan has not clarified, as mentioned by Mas Alman, who will bear the cost of the premium cost of offsets, whether it is the supplier, whether it is the industry that receive it, or whether it's the Ministry of Industry or someone else. And that remains an unresolved question, which affect the willingness of the provider. I think it affects more on the provider sides because they need to invest in order to receive offsets, and they don't have money to invest. Most of our defense industries are not in good financial conditions, despite of the government insertions of capitals, and so each of these concerns must be addressed separately. I think the local industry must be ensured, must be guaranteed that whatever the investment that they make for offsets, they will have it returned. And the government can help it by assuring there will be another order, a continuous order, until they achieve the return of investment or until they become more competitive to penetrate defense markets, probably home and abroad. So, Pak Febi, more homeworks for Kemhan if we want to continue this offsets, this mandatory offsets policy. But as I said before, it is the best that we address the concern of each parties one by one, because all of the concerns are actually justified. Thank you, Mas Fauzan.
Thank you, Mbak Guri, for the great answer. Maybe Pak Novan or Pak Dedi or Pak Alman, would you like to add something to the question?
Pak Dedi, you're still muted.
Well, okay, Pak Fauzan, I just add the information from Bu Guri. So, you know that my office have established since 2019. During that time till now, we never request for industry to add their investment to enhance their capability. So that is a very challenging task. You know, we negotiate with the OEM. We never push our local industry to be investment for enhance their capability. So this is our trick, our model to deal with them, due to we do not know how much their revenue. So that is a part of why the big country, they produce their equipment. So we do not know how much the basic price for those equipment. So that's why we strong negotiate with them in order to enhance our local industries. So you know that we send the people from industry under their budget, and also they give us a lot of equipment to provide MRO in local industry. And then we also give us the license, design, and so on. And let me give you a sample. Like we bought C-130G from Lockheed Martin. So they give our local industry a capability for upgrade C-130H. So now is running. So we need upgrade around 8 fleet C-130H. So our local industry, such as GMF and PTDI, they have a capability on that. The Lockheed Martin gave GMF one new center wing box to give them lecture how to change the center wing box for C-130H. And they also give the GMF a lot of special tools. And also they send the people from GMF to Lockheed Martin. And those activities under their cover. And then for PTDI, they give local content around 700 items and 400 wire harness and around 24 special tools. So many things they got from the Lockheed Martin. So another CTLCO we got from many procurement. So we never talk to local industry to make investment for provide their capability. So this is we are running for the CTLCO program. So I just add the some information. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Dedi, for the great answer. Maybe Pak Novan, do you want to ask something to the same question? Perhaps especially regarding how can we ensure the continuity of defense procurement when there is a change in the administration, whether it is on the, let's say, ministerial level or presidential level change?
Okay. Once the procurement or the acquisition program is already signed, the contract is signed, there is a principle called the sanctity of the contract, which means that unless one party violate the terms of the contract, we cannot abrogate the contract. We cannot cancel the contract, unless if like what happened in India, for example, there is an accusation and proof that there have been some bribery or corruption involved. But considering that everything is going as properly as it should, following all the regulations, there's nothing we can do unless we are willing to pay for the price of the fine. Usually they will have a penalty or a fine for canceling a contract. But for a longer planning, this is a chicken and egg situation in the sense that our requirement is projected for the future now, in the present time. But in the next 5 years, we really don't know what will really happen. So there should be some space also for a dynamic planning for the procurement. For example, many people said that with the examples from the Armenia and Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, it shows that we should invest more on UCAV, unmanned combat air vehicle. Or should we invest instead of the anti-UAV system? Currently, we are dealing with cyber threat, but we never know what technology will emerge in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, which will create a newer threat. And technology has its own lifespan, expiry date or obsolescence. It will get obsolete at one time, but of course not very quick, but we also must pay attention to that. So you can say we can, let's say, have a long-term plan such as GBHN, the state guidance policy, for example, in the past. But again, if we set a policy for too long, let's say 10 years, 15 years, then we will not be able to factor in the development or the developing situation in the future. I think that also what happened with the MEF, because then the geopolitical consideration have changed. I think that's what I can say so far, Mas Fauzan. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Novan. For our next question, we have Pak Ian Montratama from Universitas Pertamina. How to prove that a foreign arms manufacturer has fulfilled its counter-threat obligation to Indonesia? Second is from Haris Hermawan from Islamic University of Madinah. How is the development of Indonesia's missile program? What technologies have not been mastered by Indonesia to produce its own missile? Maybe I would like Pak Alman to give his answer first.
Yeah, thank you. I think the first question should refer to Colonel Dedi. I'm not government officials. And the second question, missile. I think we still have some problem with missiles. We don't have capacity to produce the engine. We don't have capacity to produce the electro-optics regarding missile. So it's still a long way for Indonesia to have own capacity to produce missile. On the other hand, I want to add some opinions about investment on defense industry. I can take the example of PTDI today. Most of PTDI production facility were bought during IPTN era, during Pak Habibie era, like the CNC machinery. And yes, there was a PMN or state capital injection during President Yudhoyono, but it's not cover the whole machinery that need to be modernized. If we don't modernize this production facility in the years to come, the competitiveness of this company in terms of aerostructure will be diminished. And I heard some not good story about these issues if there is no capital injections for this production capacity. In the long term, if we want to, let's say, I believe that aerostructure is one of our competitive product on aerospace. But but once again, it should be followed by the modernization of this production facility. The question is, who will finance this? If, let's say, if in coming months there will be government will set up the holding company for defense industry, will the holding company finance the modernization? Because we know state-owned enterprise ministry will not inject any more rupiah into the production facility. That's my concern about how we will absorb offset in regard to the, let's say, structure, including what Colonel already mentioned about modernization of center wing box of C-130 each, where the center wing box will be manufactured in PTDI, with the productivity of their CNC machinery has been declined compared to 10 or 20 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ahmad. Maybe Pak Dede would like to answer the first question, Pak. How to prove or to ensure that foreign arms manufacturer fulfill its counter trade obligation?
You are still muted.
Okay, thank you, Pak Fauzan. I tried to answer the question from Pak Yan Montana regarding the counter trade. So most of the foreign supplier are private company. So that is a very difficult to fulfill the CTLCO by counter trade. We just have the program for the counter trade just only from the Russia, due to the all of their defense industry are state enterprise. So of course, the Rosoboron export, they take care for the program for the acquisition, and Rostec they take care for the counter trade. So they have a part of from their government policy. So that's why they comply 45% for the acquisition for the local content and offset, and 40 to comply with our regulation via counter trade. So of course, we send the information to our Department Minister of Trade. So for this acquisition, we still need 40% for the total budget or the total contract for the counter trade. So we send the product of our local industry to the Minister of Trade to be a priority. So for that program, the Russia agree for the vessel petrol from Lundin, and then another with the another goods. So that is the counter trade run via Minister of Trade. That is not our capacity after that. So I think that is a counter trade run for the CTLCO program, Pak Fauzan. And then I try to answer from Pak Aris regarding the missile program. So last time from the DTIB, they have a policy, the backbone for the missile is from the C705 from China. But so you can imagine for one Renstra, so for every 5 years, we just can buy around 5 missiles. So they need around 100 missiles for the transfer of technology. So you can imagine when we can get the technology for the missile. So that is very impossible. So it means around 20 Renstra to achieve that technology. So we start to another way. From the Pothan, we have a program for the, we call Bin Potehan. So we push our local industry to try the some of part that missile. So we have a fishbone for the missile. So for example, we give a chance to our local industry, such as ETS. They make a seeker and also for the ENS. And we try to give a chance to another local industry to take a part of that missile. And also from the offset and local content, we got from MBDA. So as we know that we procure a lot of missile from MBDA to provide our Rafale. So for that items, we got technology from MBDA how to create the launcher, and also we get offset or transfer of technology from MBDA regarding the missile program. So that is our implementation for the enhance our local industry to be achievement for the missile program. So due to that is very difficult, and that is very impossible if we get technology from China. So I think that is our program right now. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Dedi, for the great answer. Maybe Pak Alman or Mbak Puri, if want to add something. Now we're gonna move to next question. It's from Gali Pambaru Wibawanto. in the context of the post-MEF transfer of technology and offset potentials, is the appointment of PT as the parent company for Indonesia Defense Industry Holding is the right choice? Maybe Mbak Kuri or Pak Alman can answer the question first regarding the appointment of PT.
Perhaps it is better to direct the question to Pak Dedi, because honestly, until now, we don't know the progress of the Defense Industry Holding. Yeah, we only hear news here and there, for example, regarding the creations of Center for R&D for defense industries, but we are yet to hear a significant progress or a decision, for that matter, whether there will be the creation of holding will be realized this year or anytime soon. Perhaps Pak Dedi could elaborate more on that, Pak.
Okay, I tried to answer why the PT Land to be a holding company for the defense industry. So PT Land have chosen as a holding company by Minister of State Enterprise, not from the Minister of Defense. So probably I think the idea is the whole system they have electronic system. So that's why for the integration they need the capability from the PT Land. Probably that is the idea. Last time we already have before they have a holding company. Okay, for the aeronautics, the prime contractor is a PTDI. For the vehicle, strategic vehicle by PT Pindad, and then for the electronic system led by PT Land. So right now, regarding the all different industry, put it on holding company, and the Minister of State Enterprise already chosen PT Land as a holding company. So I tried, that is the idea why PT Land to be as the lead of holding company. So that is our answer.
Thank you, Pak Dedi. Next, we have a new question from Pak Budi Ahmadi, in which he will deliver it directly to the speakers. Please, Pak Budi.
Good evening from Jayapura, Colonel Dedi, Mbak Kuri, and all speakers. Thank you for the opportunity. And firstly, I want to give a short story about our defense industry. That I want to refer the statement from Mbak Kuri, Professor Mr. Ron Matthews. He ever said to me, if we want to blame the history, we must blame why our defense industry was born from the concentration of the defense industrialization itself, because the defense industry is impossible born without the total defense and commercial industry strategy. So if Professor Ron Matthew ever said to me, if at the time Professor Habibie told that the trickle-down effect would happen from the defense industry to the commercial industry, it is totally impossible. So now, the effect for our defense industry, the negative impact, happen currently. Our defense industries seem to be walk alone without the commercial industry's support. Shortly, I want to ask to Mbak Kuri, as the one of the most intelligent student of Professor Ron Matthews. He ever said to me when in 2013, and I also read your dissertation at the time about defense offset also. You know that if we want to do the offset, we must not only focus on the foreign producer, we must also know well about our capacity. Mostly in our side, we blame the foreign industries for the fail of the offset. So if we know our capacity currently, which is the more important or more priorities for us to fix the lack of succeed of the counter trade, local content, and offset strategies we have done in the recent years. So and then if we choose between the high technology or the lower technologies, which is the best for us? Because I can see that if we choose the high technologies, only a few industries, domestic industries, can absorb the offset. It is also a problem for us. It's your time, Mbak Guri. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mas Budi, for your kind attribution. My suggestion to you is don't listen and don't trust 100%. If a white guy, especially with red ginger hair, talk to you about the smartest kid in his class, because he could be wrong. The problem with the offsets impact to our defense industrialization, as you mentioned, there are many, both positive and negative. And can I share some slides? I think okay, I think you will find this very interesting. It doesn't give you the answers that you're looking for, because your question is just too important to grant to be answered in this humble forum. I think it's require a string of FGDs with highly expert people to be able to answer that. Okay. I hope I don't share you my whole. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, at least I think two of the most important questions that you ask is the first, whether we know our industrial capacity when it comes to offset. And then the second is that which one should we choose, high technology versus low technology? I think there are so many questions that you ask, but allow me to choose to focus on that two questions. So you miss, I guess you missed the first series of this event when we had speaker from KKIP. He mentioned that one of the greatest challenges that he faced now with offset is that KKIP doesn't have yet a full pictures of Indonesian defense capacity when it comes to arms production. You know, the how many industries capable of what. Of course, we have industries that registered with Kemhan, but we have not get the pictures of industries, especially privates, that could have relevant capacity and contribute to defense production. And so in order to answer that, let me show you the difficulties of mapping our own capacity. We have conducted this study for Bappenas in 2019 to identify what variables we should look in order to measure our own defense production capacity. And we divided the variables into three: economy, domestic politics, culture, and technology diffusion. And we found that actually in terms of industrial structures, the number of manufacturing industries relevant to arms production, we are not bad. We have enough industries to start defense production. The problem is the depth of the industry, the supply chain. But this is also difficult to map because the lack of data. And then we have major problems in human capital formation because the number of populations that registered in the secondary and tertiary level is very low. And when we have this projection to 2045, the level of our human capital formation is still lower than that of China for 2019. So we are actually 26 years behind China in terms of human capital. And China is actually the lowest or the nearest autarky model that we could compare us with. Russia and US has much higher human capital formation level. And then in terms of domestic politics, our defense budget and defense investment budget, R&D and procurement are also major problems for developing our defense industry. And then for the diffusion of culture and technology, the diversification of arms supply is another major problem for us, because apparently there is correlation between the less you diversify your source and the more local arms production you can do. And this is explained by the number of licensed productions. Yeah, the less number of arms supplier you have correlates with the better relations and the better leverage you have against that supplier, which enable you to demand for many kinds of technology transfer. And in this case, we measure the number of licensed production. And when we compare our defense production capacity with that of Russia and China, it's so far away. But with China, this is the mapping that we could get. So there are so many problems, and most of the problems are actually located outside the defense sector. The human capital is not defense sector specific issue. So what we recommend from this study is that just give up the idea of autarky or self-reliance and then focus on whether we want to be a global supply chain or we want to have a counter-dependent strategy. To be a niche is not our strong point, because to be a niche, you must be innovator, and innovation is not our strong point. And that goes to the second question, whether we need to choose high technology or low technology. Even Pak Habibie said that we must choose teknologi tepat guna, not necessarily high technology. And Pak Habibie choose to build transport airplane industry, not fighter jet, because for him it is more, it is makes sense more. It is the level of technology is also more attainable than the fighter jet, and the technology is more useful because it could be dual use. Yeah, to support the integration and transportation that this archipelagic country need. But I think the question about technology should be rephrased. That is, for us, technology has never been the factor when we plan for defense. It is always either threat or state affordability, the budget, and mostly it's the budget, because we're lacking of budget, so we have to reduce our ambition, and then we could only plan for this and that. And I think it's a time for us to plan from technology, what kind of technology we think is strategic for future war, and then from that options we choose which technology is the more economical and attainable for us to adopt. And I think if you study O'Hanlon, as I mentioned before, there are actually options of new technology for us. For example, the missile technology that one of the participants have just mentioned. Missile technology has the potential to be more economic because of the digital printing technology. Yeah. And also missile technology is one of the weapon system that require less maintenance costs. Yeah. Therefore, many countries usually diversify their sources of missile technology, and this missile technology creates a strong deterrence effect. Of course, Mas Novan, I think Mas Novan and I have debated this before. To master the missile technology, especially the one higher than subsonic, supersonic, and hypersonic missile would be very sensitive, and it could change the balance of power within the region, which is not good. It could create a negative arms dynamics, which could eventually lead to arms race. But there are also other technology, for example, the UAV technology that Mas Novan also mentioned, the kind of technology that changed the conduct of war in Nagorno-Karabakh lately. It's not as expensive. Some air forces, the French, for example, have already thinking of incorporating more UAVs and to somehow to make them interoperable with their fighter jets. So there are many options, and I think that's the process of choosing this should be initiated by the Ministry of Defense. And of course, you have to rethink about whether the 7 national program or currently the 10 national program, because you must add the UAVs, forest and cyber, are still relevant. And if not, then what should we do? And I think it is timely for us to conduct such review. Yeah, considering at the moment we are led by a quite bright defense minister. Yeah, who's think of modern warfare. He's very adept at imagining future warfare. And I encourage also Samar and colleagues in Satwapres to also have those kind of debates, yeah, to continue such debates if to provide second or third opinions for the Ministry of Defense as well. I think I fall short in your expectation. I'm not the smartest student in the road mathematics class, unfortunately. But you got to say that road mathematics has a very impressive marketing ability when it comes to his students. I think that's all. Sorry for taking your time for too long.
Thank you, Mbak.
Thank you, Mbak Puri. And next we have a specific question for Panovan. Panovan, since you're a journalist, you're working in the media industry, how does the public or Jakarta Post readers respond to TNI modernization plan?
Okay, thank you. In the Jakarta Post, we believe that the TNI should really modernize. It's already time, because we can see there are in the past a number of accidents, although accidents cannot really connect it to age alone, because I believe in accidents investigation, they call it a 5M, man, media, mission, machine, and so and management. So not only about the age, but yes, if you have a newer, more modern weapon systems, you will have a higher level of deterrence. And also in the Jakarta Post, we believe that we should, as an archipelagic country, we should invest more in the Navy and also in the Air Force, because most of the threats will become from outside of Indonesia. It's not that we do not need a strong army, but relatively we already have a quite powerful army. And then, if I'm not mistaken, it's also included in the TNI doctrine that you have some kind of preemptive strike before attrition warfare once the enemy already entered Indonesia. However, due to the large area of waters, sea, under our EEZ, we believe that the capabilities that we should have are more into the maritime patrol and maritime surveillance, because we cannot do that using land-based assets. We need some eyes in the sky to see, and then also some muscles on the sea, on the surface, to do the action. So yes, we support the TNI modernization as long as it is done transparently. Well, of course, it's quite contradictory. Military and transparency never come in the same breath, but in a sense that it is done with all the regulation and reducing the possibility of irregularities, I mean, like bribery or corruption, corrupt practices. That's our view, Mas Fauzan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Novan.
I think before we move on to our last question, maybe we have an enthusiast participant here, Pak Andreas Wangsanegara, who would like to address something from Pak Alman's comment earlier. Please, Pak Andreas.
Selamat sore. Thank you so much, Bu Anastasia.
Yes.
I think I have a bit of disagreement with Pak Alman regarding PTDI. In terms of equipments, it is true that they have mostly old CNC machines, even though some of the newer machines, the FMCs and the 5-axis are quite new. But the thing is, what I think they should do is actually mapping the supply chain, which can be done quite easily through INACOM, through Kementerian Perindustrian, so that they don't need actually to invest anything if they can utilize the supply chain. So, for examples, their core competency is in aerostructures. Okay, they should be just an integrator, as most of the industry at the past 3 decades, they're consolidating most of the work with their supply chain, and what they do is basically only assembly. For instance, like Boeing with 737, they buy the whole fuselage from Spirit Aerospace. They only integrates the wing section, they integrates the cabling, the harness, and the engines before they ship to the customer. I think that's what PTDI should do, just being an integrator. And they put more emphasis on building the supply chain so that they increase the capability and the competency of the whole business, I would say. So that's my point regarding the whole PTDI situation. It's just that very difficult for them to understand, very difficult for them to move on. And but actually, if they want to change the perceptive a little bit, they don't need so much investment to basically reignites the company.
Thank you, Pak Andreas.
Regarding PTDI.
Okay, well then, Pak Alman, we invite you to respond.
No, I don't have comment.
Okay.
There are things we cannot discuss here.
Okay, Pak, understood. Then Fauzan, we can move to the next question, maybe, and the last one.
Okay, Cak. The next question will be from Dian Firmansyah from Rolls-Royce Indonesia. In the case of warship construction, how to increase the percentage of local content, and to achieve that, should foreign naval system suppliers produce their products locally in Indonesia? Maybe Pak Alman, would you like to give your answer?
Yes, I think there is different question about this. The first one is, where is the source of the ships? Who designed the ships? Is it local design or foreign design? Let's say if you sign contract with, let's say, Daman or Fincantieri or Babcock, you may manufacture the ship here, but don't forget you buy the material from those companies. So we still need materials like steel, something like that, from overseas. So it is depend on your question depend on whether the ship design is developed by local Indonesian company, or we buy or we license it from foreign companies. The second one is, don't forget about the electronic equipments and web, which has bigger component compared to the, let's say, to the platform. Bigger component and also bigger cost. I don't think Indonesian company has capacity to let's say, to develop their own combat management system, their own radars, their own electro-optronics, something like that. So even if we can, let's say, manufacture the platform here, the biggest piece of cake still come from the electronic equipments about the ships. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Alman. Pak Dedi, maybe you would like to add something?
Still muted, Pak. Sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Pak Fauzan. I just add information from Pak Alman. So please, we can see our capability for the shipyard, like frigate. We just have capability around 19%. Due to we just can make a platform. The most of equipment from overseas. We just make like data distribution unit DDU from PT SKM, micro switchboard from PT TTS, and communication intercom from PT LAN. And but again, I just remind the audience that our local industry, they do not make, they just build. If we put it in fishbone, we start to identify what kind of technology indeed. Okay, most of those equipment from overseas, like you see, engine, and then sensor weapon and command, and weaponry. They almost come from the overseas. So that's why they have to generate our ecosystem tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. So this is our challenging to enhance their capability, to encourage our local component. So that is the important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Dedi. I will combine the two last questions from our audience. First, from Muhammad Reza Ahwadi from Indonesian Navy. For all speakers, what recommendation would you give to the government regarding Indonesia future CTLCO potentials? And from Tangguh Chairil from Binus University, as TNI will soon have a change of commander, how do you think the leadership of the new TNI commander, the new Panglima, will impact Indonesia post-MEF modernization program? Maybe Pak Novan or Mbak Kuri can answer first.
Okay, I will answer first. The question about recommendation. Yeah, actually, during my presentation, I already have hinted in the challenges that I would recommend government to pay more attention to the lower tier companies, because the prime contractor or the lead integrators are already have okay capability. Mbak Kurim would say that it's not that bad, but not that good yet. So in the middle. So what we need is to improve the capabilities and capacities of the lower tiers. Let's say that we do not have companies that make engine already, but then it's for me it is something impossible yet for the time being, unless we master the metallurgy. But there are some subsystems, as Pak Dedi already mentioned, that for the frigate we already have some electronics and communication companies. They need to be given more technical assistance or BIMTech to improve their capacity and capabilities, and how we can include them in the offset program if we have a procurement program from abroad. I think that's from me, Mas Fauzan. Oh, for Mas Khairil, Tangguh Khairil, I really cannot see yet now how the change of TNI chief will affect the modernization, but I believe the next TNI chief will of course fight for a stronger TNI. It's just how they will set the priorities, because they cannot do it at all at once. They will be in their post maybe only 2, 3, maximum 4 years. Perhaps that's so much to be done, but not enough time. Thank you, Mas Fauzan.
Thank you, Pak Novan. Maybe Pak Alman?
Yeah, I think the first thing about offset is about planning, and then also about our industrial capacity, and then don't forget about the budget, because the budget is the mother of everything today in terms of defense sector. As for the forthcoming Panglima TNI, I think it will have less impact on modernization, because modernization program is the authority of Minister of Defense, and then what he can do is how to improve the relation between Ministry of Defense and TNI in terms of modernization program, because to some extent that the way of thinking of current Minister of Defense is not anticipated by TNI. The minister, he has a 3-4 step ahead of thinking before TNI. That's the challenges today in terms of weapon system. What kind of weapon system MOD wants to buy for TNI? I think TNI should always change itself. Do not stay on the comfort zone, because technology always evolving. Like threats, technology always evolving, and you cannot depend on, let's say 10 years ago technology for the next 10 years. But you should have a vision about what will happen, what is the level of advance of technology in the next 10 or 20 years, because we are talking about defense modernization that will take generations, will take different administration, will take also different technology, different challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Alman. Pak Dedi, please, Pak.
Well, in regards in that issue, I think the regulation is still there. So we appointed president as a chief of the DTIB. I think we still need a commitment and consistently for the program. So we already have 7, now probably 8 or 9 priority program. So we can fulfill that program via offset program. So if we do not have that technology, or we still enhance our technology, we can get from the offset program. So if we already have a proven product, so we can start via supply chains. So this is good for us to run our local industry, and also we need that again to provide our armed forces. We can push the OEM to fulfill their technology, and also we can get from another way from the research and development. So right now we have a brain so we can will get the technology from that side. So I think we just know that program IFX, we need the operational requirement and technical specification from the users. So we built with the South Korea from the technology developments. What kind of technical specification they need, for example. So we can fulfill those equipment from another country. For example, okay, we cannot have a factory for the engines. So we can looking for from a many country. So probably for the Europe, we can acquisition from the East Europe, for example. So the important thing is how we provide our armed forces and comply with their technical specification. Again, from my side that we still need commitment and consistency from our government. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pak Dedi. With the last two questions, we have come to the end of our webinar today. Summer Sentinel Indonesia would like to thank our wonderful speakers and audience for joining us today, and we'd like to inform you that we will host more webinars on defense-related issues, so please follow our social media to receive updates on our future webinars. We sincerely thank everyone for the fruitful discussion today, and we wish you all good health. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the weeks to come.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.